Welcome back to another week of Kernel at the Buzzer. I'm your host, Kai McClelland. We want to remind you, before this podcast starts, that everyone on today's podcast, it is their opinion, and it does not reflect the Kernel as a whole. Today, we'll be talking about both Kentucky men's basketball and Kentucky women's basketball going on the road and suffering a loss, but bouncing back with strong wins. All that and more next. Welcome back to another week of Kernel at the Buzzer. I'm your host, Kai McClelland. I'm joined again by Israel Schill, my co-host. But if we look over here, AJ Nava is back from being sick. And we're also welcoming our guest, Jenna Lifshen, who is a Kentucky women's basketball beat reporter and the greatest swim and dive reporter the Kernel has ever seen. Jenna Lifshen, everybody.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
So, we got to talk about this men's basketball team. First of all, I have the greatest analogy for y'all. It's like going to Golden Corral every single week. You don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know if it's going to be bad. Like sometimes the macaroni be hitting, and sometimes you have food poisoning. This team,
I don't think anyone goes to Golden Corral.
I don't
no,
think
just me.
It's been
my big bet
for me. I don't know if I've ever had
That might be
Golden
the worst analogy I've ever heard.
Do you know what it is?
I know what it is.
Okay, cool.
I've heard of it. Yes.
I didn't know it was a real place. I didn't know it existed.
It's kind
Maybe
of accurate,
would have
but
been better
not
with like a Waffle House
not
type
the
analogy
to go to. Yeah.
Anyways.
It's all right.
No disrespect
we'll just
to
skip
Golden
past
Corral.
that part.
Okay, so they lose at Vanderbilt, and you think this team's like chalk. Do you think the SEC is so hard, they're probably not ready? And then they go into Tennessee without two of their best players, Lamont Butler and Andrew Carr, and they beat Tennessee, who, you know, we've had the discussion, they're kind of overrated or maybe they're actually kind of good. Still, they're regarded as a top 3 SEC team, and Kentucky just goes on their home court, beats them straight up without their two best players. So, guys, initial thoughts on this Kentucky team this week. Like, how do you even evaluate them going forward?
I think for this week alone, Kentucky, they had a little bit of a gut check going into Vanderbilt and losing the way they did. But this week, they came back against Tennessee, shorthanded, unhealthy, and still battled it out and came out on top. Thankfully for the team, they needed that. And going forward, they're going to be great competitors when they're healthy. When they have the full lineup, it's going to be great. Kentucky fans can have hope. But as of right now, they need to, as fans, they need to know they are unhealthy. It's going to be a grind every game going forward until Kentucky is back at 100% health.
For sure, and I mean, Ortega just hits his head off the floor after a poster.
Man,
I mean, it's probably like, oh my gosh, he's hurt now too.
Yeah,
he bounced back, right?
That was scary, though. That was a little scary. As a fan of the game, it's scary to see somebody come down from a dunk and not know where they're going to land.
Yeah.
And just like, glad he hit his shoulder and not his head too hard, but
Hold your breath for those.
yeah, he popped right back up.
Thank God for adrenaline.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, for real.
Seriously, yeah.
Wait, that was bad. Even as I saw Tennessee fans like scared out of their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee fans kind of weirded me out this week. I know he's a little kid, like, but bro, why are you going up to Kobe Bryant after y'all just lost? That's kind of crazy.
Leave the kid alone.
He's switching sides.
Yeah.
Let that Hope Corps video be, man. Let it be.
We'll watch that in a minute. But just in the nitty gritty, do y'all see any like real trends kind of happening? Do you think like the SEC is just really tough and like nothing even matters going into it? It's just going to be a good game.
I think it's hard too. When you look at the SEC, there's never really a week where you can be like, okay, we can rest a little bit this week. We can, it's an easy game. We'll be fine. Every single game, you truly don't know. You don't know what team we're going to be playing. You look at Arkansas on Saturday, which we'll talk about later. We don't know what Arkansas team's going to show up because of what that game means to them and to Kentucky. So when it comes to the SEC, it's just every single game is different. Every single game's a battle. And you just have to be able to overcome it. And that's what makes this Kentucky team so good, is that when they're down, when they lose to teams like Vanderbilt, and it's a really hard loss that they were supposed to win, they're able to come back and beat Tennessee without two of their best players when they were not supposed to at all.
And again, like, they've had those unranked losses, but you see behind us on this graphic, 6-1 against AP top 15 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they show up for those big ones, and that's extremely important when you have this whole first-year program, and we've talked about it so much, but they're just kind of thrown in the fire together.
Yep.
Let's learn chemistry. Let's, figure out the sets at work, who plays well together, and all this going forward. And they're still out here what's their record on the season now? It's 15-5.
Yeah.
I think every Kentucky fan's going to live with 15-5, and now after beating Tennessee, going to be back in the top 10 of the nation. It's a winning season. It's like something you can look at in a positive light. So the fact they're still getting success on the road, you have teams like Auburn, number 1 team in the country, coming up. It's like Kentucky could actually do it, and it's believable. They're going to have a competitive game with Arkansas and Vandy, and they can still beat the number 1 team in the nation. It's just it's kind of crazy how they're competing, and the SEC is just so obviously the best conference in the nation.
Yeah, and I think it extends just beyond them being good and just overall success of the teams in the SEC. But I think it really all comes together at the rivalries that are formed there. Kentucky versus Vanderbilt is no rivalry.
No.
But when they go into Vanderbilt, that was a rowdy stadium.
It was a loud crowd.
To be fair, Vanderbilt fans are just kind of tired of being the runt of the group and being
I would be too if I was
the
a
kid that
Vanderbilt
doesn't
fan.
get picked for dodgeball
Exactly.
every week. It's
Pretty much, yeah.
And now they're
They're
I'm
in
not
the
gonna
talks.
say
They're
big
a lot
dogs,
better
but they're
than everyone
they're
they
thought
hit
they were.
puberty.
high.
They got some muscle on them.
And they were
They hit puberty. They're not the freshman that's not getting picked. They're juniors now.
Analogies today.
Dude, the
Golden
analogies today are
Corral,
awesome.
the-
Yeah,
But again, they could be there. They beat Kentucky. They
absolutely.
They had
And
a
I-
game with Florida. They can go out there.
They had the
and play,
momentum
man.
on their side for that game, though. The game
They did.
before that huge win,
Yeah.
the crowd was up on their feet the whole time. They were on their side. That was a big point in their win for sure.
And I think especially against Tennessee, you realize how important preseason is, because Tennessee, all of preseason, they played absolutely nobody. And they got ranked so high because they didn't lose. But now that they're playing real teams every week, every couple days, they're struggling because they didn't have that practice. Kentucky consistently played hard teams. We look at Auburn, consistently played hard teams. And now they're able to be consistent when in conference because they have that experience together.
Very good point. And I think even with that Ohio State loss, that's such an early loss. Yeah, it's frowned upon, but it's hey, we played on a big stage at MSG. That's a loss you can instantly learn from. And it's evident they got better since that point. That is not the same Kentucky team. So
For sure.
Absolutely. I do think, and honestly, I don't think the Vanderbilt loss wasn't anything to be scared of. And I think all of the SEC losses are nothing to be terrified of.
No.
Maybe to have some worry. But really, Kentucky.
It's the best conference I've seen in forever. I mean, they're
Exactly.
truly just every single team. There's not a single team, really, I think, that you can go and play and be like, all right, we can throw in some bench warmers. Every team is good, and every team has talent. And obviously, so many of them are ranked.
Yeah.
And that just comes with it.
And
There's
Vanderbilt was
spurts,
unranked.
too.
Yeah.
There's these little spurts you see, too, middle of February of Tennessee, Texas, Vandy, Bama. Realistically, you could go 0-4 during that whole stretch. I
You
think
could
the
also
answer.
go 4-0.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
think
thing.
the answer is consistency.
For sure.
And they've been that so far. If you drop one, you win one. If you, they came back and beat Mississippi State, Texas A&M, 2 ranked teams after that loss. So it's consistency going forward is all that really matters. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but again, to your point,
it's okay.
it's just literally you can't really front on these bad losses, because they're not really bad losses.
Exactly.
You just got to bounce back from them.
And I just think for a lot of fans, the reason that they get so upset over these losses because, we look at it and it's losing to Vanderbilt's not bad. They're a good team. Everyone underestimated them, and they're way better than everyone thought. So losing to them isn't bad. But I think so many people are still thinking of last season where it seemed if we lost to one team, that's it. Then we cannot pick up the pace. But this team can. Mark Pope is able to, get them back up and keep them going and brush a loss off their shoulder and go into the next game and win it. And that's what Kentucky fans need to realize, is that one loss isn't the end at all. They're able to come back.
And thankfully, basketball is such a lengthy and like the land of opportunity is just
the
like
schedule's
so
very
raw.
forgiving.
Yes.
as
It's
well.
not like football where like
No.
you
One loss.
barely lose to Georgia and then your season's over because
Yeah.
you didn't do it. So plenty of opportunities for them to get better, plenty of opportunities to get ranked wins. I mean, still on the schedule, you're going to have Tennessee again.
Yeah.
Texas, are they – I'm not sure if
Texas
they're
has a
ranked.
really good freshman. He's very talented, and they're going to struggle with him. But in the SEC, Texas isn't in the top, but they're definitely not someone to count out on.
Yeah.
They overcame a 20-point deficit when they were playing A&M at A&M. Or no, it was at Texas. But they're able to fight, and they will fight.
Like,
So,
yeah, they're 11th in the SEC, but they're 14-6.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
fight. That's a team that fights, and it's one that they definitely cannot overlook.
I know they held really close to Auburn this
Yeah,
season.
they did.
sometime.
That was a
They
good
did.
game.
That's why I was
That was a
thinking
great
maybe
game.
they
And playing
got
at
that
Texas,
win.
Moody Center's hard. I've been there many, many times. It's a very hard place to play in. It's really loud. Their student section is massive. It's not going to be easy at all. And obviously, it's not a team they're familiar with since it's their first
I mean,
year.
they lost to Auburn by 5, and the next week later they lost to Tennessee by 4. They
Yeah.
also had to play Texas A&M the week right before that.
Yeah.
So that's a tough 3-game stretch to go into. You know you're obviously going to lose at least one of those games.
Yeah.
But only losing by 5 to Auburn and 4 to Tennessee.
They're
That's
a
nothing
good
to shake your
team,
head at.
and they're
Yeah.
learning how to play together for sure.
For
Very
sure.
young.
So against Vanderbilt, I mean, Kentucky started off so bad, and not like so bad. It was like actually horrid.
It was
Like,
horrible.
It's probably the worst first half you possibly could have. They 4 for 14 from 3. They delivered out of the 3. That's how they play. They shot 2 free throws the entire half. That's like
Yeah.
crazy to think about, just because they're not drive heavy, but they can definitely get themselves to the line and create those. Vanderbilt, like, in my opinion, just straight up like beat them in every area, and no matter how heroic of a second half you can have,
Yeah.
how many threes Ainsley can knock down in the corner, how many like Ortega plays you can get out of them. I thought nobody really showed up. The crowd affected them. The second half was great, but again, like, no heroics can save how bad that first half was.
No, I mean, they got outscored 41-27. That's really brutal.
Yeah.
Looking more at, like, shots, too. I mean, they only took 54 shots that game. Vanderbilt took 66. That's 33 three-pointers that they shot. UK only shot 23. And, that's a lot, but it's more when you're hitting them. But, I feel besides Kobe Bray obviously going 1 for 5, 1 for 3 from the three-point line, and Lamont Butler going 2 for 7 and 1 for 2 from the three-point line. Kentucky shot well. They just didn't shoot enough. I just don't think they gave themselves enough opportunities to score. I think they went in not expecting it to be as difficult as a battle maybe. They also had 17 turnovers, 10 of those
Yeah.
being steals
Bad.
from Vanderbilt. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's just we didn't expect to beat ourselves in that sense. That's what made it so difficult. I mean, going against a team who scored at the time 21% of their points through fast breaks, you can't give up the ball that much and not expect, the high-scoring runs that they went on. The Vanderbilt, the whole first half, they beat us through their runs. That 20-4 scoring run. That's how we lost.
It's ridiculous.
That's how they
Yeah,
lost.
and I don't want to say they were looking ahead, but I do think Vanderbilt obviously is a team that's underestimated, a arena that's underestimated. You don't really go in there thinking, oh, we're at Vanderbilt, we got to really lock in. They had Tennessee right after, and that's the game they were probably focusing on a little bit, and you just overlooked Vanderbilt at the end of the day, and the crowd affected them, and the environment affected them, and, that just added to it, and they were already struggling, and they just couldn't seem to come back when they were down.
And, right after that loss, you're thinking, okay, now they got Tennessee, and a day before Lamont Butler's out, and you're like,
Everyone's
I was kind of shocked about it. Like, I knew he was kind of banged up, but I didn't think he'd be out. I thought him and Carr were both going to be like game time decisions.
It seemed to be like a bit of an interesting scenario of him
It
being
was
out,
like,
though, because
he's for sure out.
Yeah, but
and I was like, whoa.
And it was like Mark Pope saying he needs this time to take for his body and his mental, and he needs to just take this game off, which was weird for him to take that at Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game, and I think it shocked a lot of people. And, people specifically on Twitter are already like, Kentucky's losing, point blank. No one believed that they were going to win. And then you get the news that Lamont is out. Everyone's like, now this is just going to be horrible. This is going to be brutal. They're going to murder Kentucky.
And
I just wait just 1 second.
Okay.
Kai and I had a phone call before the game started, and I had asked him about what I should prepare, what graphics, and what kind of stuff we wanted to talk about today. And he had said, well, maybe something about the court storming, because I assume Tennessee will win tonight. And, even though it's not an upset, they'll probably storm the court. Yeah. So we could, get some videos out of that.
Yeah.
And so, Kai didn't have his hopes all the way up there.
Talk about preparing for the worst, Kai. Dang.
Hey,
you have to.
You have to, for sure.
You have to.
And now, you look back on the box score, Kobe Bryant going in, being your biggest bench, product this season.
Mm-hmm.
Jenna, I know you wanted to touch on the depth. Seeing Kobe go into the starters, you're just kind of like, who's going to rotate with these guys?
Yeah. I definitely, we're seeing Trent Noah in there. I think what's really good about Mark Pope is he messes around with the lineup quite a lot. You will see a little bit of everyone in games like this that are really close, or games like Vanderbilt where we just need new faces on the court. So, our younger players like Trent Noah, you're seeing playing, and they're doing good. And I think it's just a testament to Mark Pope in that, the kids that are already on the team, they want to prove that they deserve to be playing for Kentucky, and when they get the opportunity, they're taking it. And that's just the kind of culture he's developed on that program, and it's benefiting them a lot.
I will say not Colin Chandler, unfortunately. 42 Doug would definitely agree with me.
42 Doug was not so fond of Colin Chandler's play.
Yeah.
Regardless of any beef anyone has with Colin Chandler, Trent Noah sparked that three. And that was
beautiful.
Boom three.
And it was hit at a perfect time.
Yeah.
It got the Kentucky fans in the stadium into the game. It got Kentucky into the game.
Yeah.
It was really pivotal, honestly, for only being in there for less than 10 minutes and playing some solid defense and chucking up a three and just drilling it. It was great.
And they needed that. They needed that
Absolutely.
extra boost, because the game was never not close. There was never a moment where you're like, I can sit down, sit back,
even
and
when
watch
Kentucky
the game.
Was up.
Exactly. It was always close, and it's so nice to know that there are players on the bench that will step up and make those pivotal plays that will just shift the energy so much.
For those who didn't watch, UK beat Tennessee 78-73, mostly due in part to Kobe Bryant's perfect shooting performance from the field. A big game from Jackson Robinson, who had 17 points and 4 threes, and Ainsley continuing to be very consistent from deep, hitting 4 more three-pointers. And I'm going to turn this over to AJ, because I know you have badmouthed Amari Williams in the past. Talk about Amari's performance. Finally had that big rebound game you've been wanting.
I haven't kept it a secret on the podcast, off the podcast. I hate our rebounding as a team. Kentucky, they fail the eye test when you watch the game. You look at the dead ball rebounds that you see going all the way to the three-point line. No one's giving effort. It hurts to see as a basketball fan. It hurts to see a 7-footer, Amari Williams, not put his 2 hands up, grab the ball, something we were all taught in middle school. So I
shout out Torian Prince. Torian Prince taught all of us
that. That's how you grab a rebound. So it really puts a smile on my face that I can talk about this team. I can talk about Amari and say he finally had that game.
It's like he was listening to you.
He was
15
listening.
Total boards.
15 total
13
boards.
defensive, too.
The box score doesn't really tell. He had multiple games with 11 boards, 12 boards. He's actually a top 40 rebounder in the nation, if you want to get technical.
Get statistical.
However, that's just bro being big and getting those easy ones.
Locked in.
It's got to be hard to not
he got those
catch a few boards at 7 foot.
He got those 50-50 boards that you need to see him get.
To give Amari credit, he is leading the team in rebounds, 8.9 rebounds a game. So he is making an impact somewhat. It's just not consistent enough. You watch the game, it doesn't feel like we're getting a lot of rebounds. We got out-rebounded. Tennessee, his 15-rebound game. And going down the stretch of the season, we can't keep getting out-rebounded. Amari has to go up from, like, averaging 8.9 rebounds to probably 9.5 if we're going to have a successful season. And, yeah.
Although we've kind of moved on from this Vandy game and pushed it under the rug, it feels like it's been some time since then. We still have to acknowledge the court storm. Anytime an unranked team can knock down a top 10 AP opponent, there's going to be a court storm. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Yeah.
And this video is courtesy of the Kentucky Kernel's Tyler Russell.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Vandy's going to have to increase their tuition. The amount of money they've spent on court storming this year is pretty insane.
Yeah, it's pretty
Between
tough,
football and basketball, I think they're going to have to increase that tuition.
Or they got to start finding the students, you know?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll
They're
like
never
get
gonna
a?
find the students.
They'll never find the
They'll
students.
never will.
Do you think maybe they'll get like a basketball goal next time? Like they got the whole goalpost. I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe
might as
they'll
well-
take down the
Yeah.
Maybe
net
they'll get the
and
net.
throw
yeah.
it in the
Someone will
in
have
the river.
some scissors in
Yeah.
there and just
Yeah,
you know.
cut the
Cut the
net.
nets.
Cut the
Maybe
net.
they'll get like one of the
Nuts.
5 jerseys that are at the top.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Do they
On
have
the
that
bro-
many?
I don't know. And then also we totally mentioned it already, but my guy Kobe Barea, way to be a great sport and like not hate the rival. This cute little young Tennessee fan came up to bro. They had a little stare down. That's Jake Paul and freaking
Logan Paul. Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
that's Mike
It
and
might
Jake.
be. No,
But
that's
took a
adorable.
little picture with him. It's cool.
cute.
It's adorable. You gotta
Yeah,
love
it's
that.
sweet.
He's switching
You know.
sides.
Yeah, well,
he might
that-
be wearing blue next time.
That
they
kid will
play.
have a Kobe
Oh.
Bryant jersey at some point in his
He
life.
might.
That
will.
guy, that little kid, will turn out to be Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
actually. But
There you go.
That's what
Sure.
basketball is about.
That's what
what it
basketball
is.
is
It's
all
bigger than
about.
basketball.
It's
You
bigger
gotta,
than
It is,
you gotta love
for
those
sure.
little
It
things.
is.
SEC, it just means more.
Just means more. Now I wonder if he still would have done all that if Kentucky lost.
Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
No.
He would have been in the
He would
locker
have
room
been
already.
on. They would have been on the
On the
bus,
bus.
crying,
On the way home.
hearing some Mark Pope quotes. And
Yep.
Let's just focus on the bright side of what happened. Be happy
Yeah.
we got
We
that
got there.
clip.
We got
We
that
did.
clip.
Do you
Love
think we may see in Arkansas? Do Arkansas fans like? Do they have like little kids like that? I don't know.
I'm sure every fan base has
Sure,
little
I
kids who
guess.
support them.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't know
Arkansas,
if, like-
Arkansas does have children.
Sure, there are children in Arkansas.
There are children in Arkansas.
who
I
are fans
promise.
of basketball.
Cool, but
Did you not start off a little kid being a fan of basketball?
not Arkansas. I like
you were in
North Carolina,
and look
bro.
where you are now, you know?
Top program comparing it to Arkansas.
Didn't
it's
y'all just
whatever.
lose?
Sure. Yeah, you.
I was
North
actually
Carolina lost
I was
to
at the
Pittsburgh.
game. That was a rough loss.
Kai made us run
Can't lie.
late.
He cried.
Yeah,
He was crying until
He cried.
until the morning. Was
I
late on
drove
his
His
way back.
tears.
I drove there
Whole
5
thing.
hours, bro.
That's a lot.
Just
Just to watch
for-
him lose.
Yeah.
Man. Should have went to a game
Oh,
in
well.
UNC.
Yeah.
You're a real one, but damn.
So this Saturday we have the thing every Kentucky fan has been waiting for: Coach Cal's return to Rupp Arena. Former glory. He was here. He didn't do much while he was here except one ring.
I would say.
Aside-
I was about
I
to
would
cut
say
you off
arguably.
hard.
You're about to
He
get
did a
canceled on
lot
Twitter
here.
for that.
I would say he did a lot here. Though
He
it was
did.
only one championship, 4 Final Fours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Coach Cal-
50 draft picks.
Great resume. You know, for 15 years, great resume.
Yeah.
Jokes aside,
It was just a bad ending.
jokes aside, he's a Kentucky legend. People put him in the conversation with Rupp. I mean, he's a legendary coach, and he's returning to play against his former team, mostly with UK players as well. DJ Wagner, Big Z, Adu Thero, all on that roster.
He's coming back with essentially the roster Kentucky would have had if he didn't leave. That's
Yeah,
the crazy
I mean,
part.
As
it
well
was
as some of
last
the
year's team.
recruits Kentucky had that he
Mhm.
pulled with him.
Yep.
And
So
Boogie Fland is
Boogie
actually
Fland is
out for the year. He's so
their
nice. But
star player.
unfortunately, that would have been so awesome to have Boogie Fland play in the matchup for
For sure,
competitive
yeah.
reasons, but
Things
So-
happen.
things happen.
Things happen.
looking at this
Injuries.
game, what do y'all really expect from it? Like, I'm expecting a Kentucky blowout, but at the same time, I almost want to say, like, with all the intensity and the feelings and the crowd, I just feel like maybe there's going to be some soft-heartedness there, and it's going to be like one of those bruising games where, like, every foul called, there's a boo, and it's, like, going to be an insane atmosphere. So,
Well, the thing is, the
I don't-
feelings of the game on the court, they're all coming from Arkansas side. From Kentucky aside,
fair.
Mark Pope, he does care, obviously.
Yep.
The players, I don't know if Kobe Bryant, I don't know if Lamont Butler coming in from San Diego State.
Understands,
Or even really cares. This most likely is another game to them, a game where they're having another opponent, one that's on paper not even
good.
that big of a threat.
I would have to. Okay, I see your point, but at the same time, I feel like that notion's going to be there. It's almost like the Louisville game. It's like, guys, we can't lose this. Like, I hope you realize, like, we cannot lose this game. I feel like that's what Mark Pope's, like, preaching. Obviously, that's, like, such a brain-dead comment because, like, obviously he's going to tell him, you got to win this one. But
for sure,
that emphasis is definitely going to be there.
I do think for Arkansas and Cal, this game is a lot more meaningful to them than any other game they're going to play this season. Obviously, they haven't been successful, but I think it's pretty easy and fair to say that they're going to put everything out there. But, you know, I think it's going to be the rowdiest environment that will be at Rupp Arena this season. I think it's one of the most important games for the fans. You know, there's a lot of mixed feelings. Do we boo him? Do we cheer him? But at the end of the day, Kentucky comes first, and they're going to make it really, really hard for Arkansas to play in there and really hard for them to do pretty much anything.
I definitely think there's going to be more people booing than cheering.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, he'll get his flowers at some point, but that day is not Saturday. Saturday,
it'll be like Rick at
Arkansas.
March.
Yeah, he is the coach of Arkansas. He left Kentucky to go to another SEC school, and we play him. And at the end of the day, you got to play him, and you got to root for your team, and that means rooting against Cal and giving him a hard place to play in. But, you know, none of it is to be disrespectful or mean to Cal or, you know, discredit what he's done, but the boos are going to happen, and the boos are valid.
You're the opponent now.
You're the opponent now, you know? So
I do think, I don't know if any of you all saw what he said about the matchup, but he said he does not care if he gets booed. He's expecting it.
He knows it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you can't leave, and, you know, we're going to see him every year. You can't expect there not to be hard feelings there because at the end of the day, you're playing them every single year. It's the same way for, I mean, everyone.
Yeah, and he even said, you know, there will be some emotions walking into the building. There will be emotions coming back to Lexington. He said he's not quite sure how he's going to take it, how he feels about it yet. But regardless, it seems besides the fact that it's his former team, I think he's looking at it as just another game.
Yeah.
Another tough game.
Another
really tough game
for
them to beat
for
Kentucky.
Arkansas.
I think this is a game definitely more for the fans than it definitely means more to the fans than I think it's going to mean to any of the players on the court, simply because there's just such a story there, and there's so much, you know, especially the difference between the people who are going to be the students who are in the eruption zone who necessarily didn't ever have Cal when he was at his prime. Most people that are currently students know him from when we pretty much sucked. And then you look at
bounced by Oakland.
Yeah,
That's
and
what they
then
know.
that's what they know. And then you have the older fans who saw him. Maybe they went to school here when he was in his prime. So there's a lot of different feelings about Cal. But at the end of the day, Arkansas is just point blank not good. They have
they're
not
1 and
been able.
6 in the SEC.
They have not been able to perform against anyone. It's been brutal every single game they've played in, and Kentucky needs to destroy them for there to be any sort of success.
I will attest to the one game Arkansas won. There was a foul called with 1 second remaining, and they got their free throws up and won the game. So
are you?
So they're basically
Technically-
0-7.
technically,
Are you
they're
trying to say
not-
they got bailed out?
Yes.
I don't think it was definitely a foul, but I'm just saying like they scraped by with
They
their
scraped by.
one single win.
Yeah.
There.
Israel, you said yes. You think they got bailed out?
By the free throw?
I mean that's
By the
crazy.
call. By
Calling
the
a
call.
foul with 1 second left, I'd be heated as an Arkansas fan.
In recent news, 2 Kentucky commits have been selected to the McDonald's All-American game. That would be Kaylin Carroll for the women's side and Malachi Moreno for the men's side. What do you guys have about them?
Yeah, so Kaylin Carroll, it is their first All-American since 2020. It's only the 9th that the program has had in the past. Obviously, the women's program has not been what Kentucky basketball is known for, but you know, with Kenny Brooks, he's changed the culture a lot. She's said multiple times that the reason she wanted to come here and, you know, chose Kentucky over schools like UNC, South Carolina, Florida State is because of the relationship he builds with his players. I mean, she's great, you know, 16th best in the country right now, and it's his only 2025 commit, but She's big, 6'3". Is going to be a really good player for Kenny to have on his roster next year. So it's really exciting for them.
Yeah, this is super exciting for Malachi. This is something he is no stranger to. He's been selected to play in the Adidas Euro Camp. He's played in the Under Armour Next Elite 24 showcase. This is a great time for him to showcase what he's bringing to Kentucky. He's a consensus top 40 prospect.
Yep.
So he's going to show out in this All-American
Yeah, and I think
game.
people really do start looking at these McDonald All-American games when they're thinking about the future of schools. I know specifically when DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw, all of them were on the same team. They had so many viewers from Kentucky watching, and it's really good for Kentucky, both of their programs, to have these kids to watch, and see what's the future is going to hold.
Yeah, if you want to see your new 6'11", top 3 consensus center in his class just absolutely ball out. If you want to see your next women's basketball star, tune into this All-American game.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one.
It's a peek in the future. It really is.
We're going to take a quick break from the episode to play week 3 of Name That Player. All right, so for this week's game of Name That Player, instead of having a picture of the player zoomed in or an old high school picture of them, we are going to be guessing them off of their stat line only. And this is their 2024-2025 averages.
Okay.
They all include points, rebounds, assists, field
Kai's
goal
cheating.
percentage, and three-point percentage.
Kai's already cheating. He's looking.
What's my record? Am I
He's
not
looking
like
at the iPad.
0-3?
Kai is 0-2,
I'm horrible.
0-3,
I don't know.
0-2.
I've only been. This is our third
This is our
game.
third,
that
so
we
you are
are
0-2.
playing.
0-2.
I'm
Okay.
0-2 as well.
So
He's looking at the iPad.
are you all ready?
Yeah, I'm
are we
so
all,
ready.
Are we all ready to go?
Ready.
Okay.
I'm locked.
Women's or men's?
This is men's. It will
Good.
alternate from here. So the first
This-
one.
Kobe
is
Bryant.
He said it first. I said it last.
Bang.
I was getting.
Kobe
Pure
Bryant.
scorer.
I was
Huge
getting there.
score. Kobe Bryant, first player on there. Oh, you gonna hit the little three.
Had to.
Shout out
We
Kobe
used a very similar picture of this, I believe, the same shot
And I thought
last
it was Georgia.
week, and you thought it was Georgia Amore
Yes.
because of the nails on his hands when he was holding the 3 up.
Oh.
Bryant. Oh yeah.
Girly nails.
Yep. Hey, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Whatever
not
that's
too
supposed to
much.
mean. All right, y'all ready for next person?
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
not.
This is.
Women's or men's?
This is women's. It all
Claire Strack.
No.
Tiani.
Tiani. That is correct. All right, it is 1-2-1. AJ,
Yeah, Claire
AJ,
definitely.
you are not on the board.
Claire.
She definitely averages more points than 12. I don't know why I said that.
And rebounds.
All right, so you guys were
Tiana.
good there.
Shout out
There's
Tiani.
Tiani. Shout out
Shout out the
Tiani. She's
star.
balling right
She's
now.
the best.
She is. All right. Men's play. This one's a little trickier, but very relevant right now.
Trent Noah.
No.
Ainsley Almore.
Correct. Ainsley Almanor. Ooh, hoo, hoo.
Bang.
He is looking to get his first
Bang.
victory here, Kai. You're almost there. What is that? 2-1?
Yeah.
2-1?
AJ has
Ooh,
How many more we have?
There's 2 left here.
2 left.
I can
Oof.
tie it up.
You can tie it up.
can tie it
Kai
up.
can secure with a point here.
All right.
This is women's.
Clara Silva.
Deja Lawrence.
Claire Strack.
Claire Strack.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yep.
I thought she averaged more rebounds.
They just
Nope.
not averaging
I don't know
more
why I
nine
said
boards.
Deja. She's not
I don't know
rebounding.
why I didn't say Strack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
said
said
Silva.
Silva.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you said Silva either.
Claire
But,
Silva will be the future.
Easy.
Yeah. There you go. All right,
right.
Kai.
I'm a great host. Double points on this last.
Double points on this last
All
one.
right.
You already won.
Or triple, so AJ could win.
Okay, so
Triple
double,
Okay.
points.
but a double.
How
would
about
tie.
whoever gets it right wins? All or nothing.
All or nothing on
All
this
or
last one.
nothing.
All my chips are out.
All his chips are on the
All right, we're
table.
going
You
all
have-
in.
This is our last person.
Amari Williams.
Oh,
Bang, I got it.
bang!
I got
Kai
cocky.
takes the victory in week 3.
I would have cooked if it was the old pictures one.
The old pictures one, probably.
would've
Yeah.
I did not do good.
I'm
I thought
only
the
gonna
men were
say
the women and the women were the
You
men.
got that last point because I got cocky and went, I know this. Like I raised my hand.
Oh,
and
he
rolled
waited.
My
Oh,
Took his time.
excuses,
Excuses.
When we
excuses.
watch the replay, you're gonna see the moment. I
Yeah,
know-
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew-
Ladies and gentlemen,
Slow-mo.
Kai McClelland, congratulations. Our week
out,
3
Kai.
winner. Shout out. His first time ever. Hopefully not his last.
Probably will.
Probably will be his
It might
last.
be his last.
All right.
So this past week, the women's basketball team did face a loss on the road, but came back home, beating Arkansas, who the men are about to play. kind of a preview that the women own Arkansas, beating them by 20 points on their home court.
Yeah.
This women's team has been remarkable all season, but I think this biggest talk, even though they're 17-2 on the season, is can they play the upper echelon teams in the SEC? And although this isn't South Carolina or LSU yet, upcoming is number 22 Alabama playing at historic Memorial Coliseum. Guys, I want to know if you think it's very realistic that they can beat Alabama, considering Bama is coming off of a loss. And then also playing at Oklahoma. I want to know your all's realistic predictions of how that will turn out
I
for
want
them.
to hear from the two people who know consensually the most out of the table what y'all
Fair.
think.
I think that's a great
Well-
idea. Let's start with Jenna.
I think we'll start off looking back on this past week. We look at that loss at A&M. A&M's a very hard place to play. College Station is a very rowdy place, and their fans care a lot about all of their sports. And, it was just a rough game, point blank. It was just a rough game. But like I was talking about with Mark Pope, Kenny Brooks has trained this team to bounce back. And when they lose a game, that isn't the end of the season. That isn't the end of, the next couple of games. They brush it off their shoulders, and they look to the next game. And luckily for them, it was an easier team. It was Arkansas. They weren't going to face an Oklahoma or an Alabama. But, I think it does show the depth of the SEC this year. A&M put up a fight against number 5 LSU, only lost by, not that much, and it's just, for the men's, the SEC's hard, and there's not going to be a week that is easy.
Yeah, and that A&M game, 31% from the field for the entire game. A team that usually makes 9 to 10 threes a game made one single three, and it's from Tiani, who's not
her.
Not your three-point shooter.
She's not
she
the
can make them, but it's
shooter.
that's
not
your
what she's
shooter.
meant to
But
do.
she's not Amelia Hassett.
Yeah, she's not
not-
Deja or
She's not.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Just
So-
to clear it up, they went 1 for 18, 5.6% in that loss against A&M.
Yeah.
It was
Crazy.
it was just
Yikes.
genuinely a really rough game. Reminded me a lot of UNC early on this season. They just looked a little discombobulated, and it showed on the court, and they struggled. But once again, they came right back, and they looked at the next game, and they beat Arkansas to the ground. So
I know ESPN women's college basketball posted a graphic before the A&M game. The biggest jinx you can ever put is the teams with the most to prove. And Kentucky was number 1, and their headline was they haven't played enough competition. And then they go and drop one to A&M. You're like, ouch, man.
yeah, it's
And
tough.
regardless, to Jenna's point, they came back against Arkansas and won heavily. And now you're getting into a gauntlet. I can't say that word.
Gauntlet.
Gauntlet.
Of a season. You have Alabama and Oklahoma,
And then
2
they
ranked teams.
go
who
on a
play-
3-game run where they play LSU, Tennessee, and South Carolina right at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You like to think that Arkansas really is their last, breathable game before they're in just this gauntlet. And then, they also face Texas, who is another top team. They just pretty much face everyone ranked in this second half of the season. And it's going to be rough, and it's going to show what kind of team Kenny has been building and how these girls work together and what kind of team they've been building. Are they strong enough to get through these games?
For sure. And, as one of the top 15 teams in the nation now, these games are proving grounds to show they belong in that top 10. They were teasing with it. If they wouldn't have lost A&M and beat Bama, they 1,000% would be a top 10 team getting that Bama win. But now, they may squeak in there, maybe get 11 or 10 with a win against Bama. Unfortunately, Bama did just lose, and, that hurts their ranking even more. But still looking ahead, these are true proving grounds for the team.
Yeah.
And, South Carolina is literally
The top dogs.
S tier when it
Yeah,
comes
they
to
are.
women's basketball.
Whatever
I mean, you
could
can argue
possibly be
LSU as S tier easily.
LSU's up there. That 10-point game with South Carolina, if you want to call South
Sold out
Carolina
crowd.
the best, they're second.
And we've said it before, they're in a league of their own, those
Yeah,
two.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They are.
And
they
even-
really are.
I mean, Tennessee's such a winnable game because it's at Memorial.
Yeah.
Texas coming to Memorial.
Texas
LSU,
will be hard.
Oh, my gosh. These teams, luckily they're at home, because if they weren't, you would just
And
draw the
obvious-
L on the schedule and move on.
And
the
obviously
home court
yours-
allows you
yeah.
some comfortability, but still they are going into the Roman Empire arena and really are just going to have a full gladiator battle for each of those games. And you're expecting it, you're knowing it. It's going to be fun to watch. And
yeah, and I think, when you look at these games like LSU sold-out crowd, it's something this team and this program has never really had. The hype for this team is insane, and Big Blue Nation has been showing out and proving that home court advantage is real, and they are getting it, and it is helping them. We look at Louisville in that overtime win. Having full packed stands definitely helps with that. But, that Bama game is going to be a really big game for them. And they really need to, show off who they are and prove to everyone, they're not a bubble team. They're up there. They want that double bye in the SEC tournament. It's going to be a battle, but I think they can do it for sure. And, you get Clara Strack another double-double. It would be, 10th, 11th on the season.
Yeah.
You get Georgia shooting her threes, and that team's pretty unstoppable.
And I think if you don't mind, I think the problem with Alabama, when you look at their roster, is they don't really have a defined center or any size.
No.
Their tallest player is 6'3". That doesn't
they
really
gotta-
compare
That's
to
our
the
small forward.
That's our exactly. It doesn't really
yeah.
compare.
Kentucky
to
definitely their size advantage is going to be coming.
To
in
put it lightly, it's
a
dog
lot of
food for
advantage.
them.
Yeah,
It is. It
they
really
do.
is.
They do average 80 points per game on pretty efficient team shooting. Still got 4 players averaging double figures in points. It's a deep team. They play really well, but they just don't have that big
size.
person down low who can bang in the post with Clara Strack and Tiani. And how are you going to stop those two down low on the glass and also just putting up points in the paint? I think it's going to be really tough.
It's not something you can overlook. I mean, what are they going to do when the big blue wall of Silva and Strack are just there with their hands up?
Yeah.
It's
unstoppable, and I think we're gonna see how much they've never had a team this big. It's pretty incredible, honestly. It's the tallest team probably in all of women's basketball, and they're gonna have to start using that size to their advantage a lot more. But they're just gonna need to make their shots. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
if those shots are not getting drained, it doesn't matter how good the defense is or how good Clara or Tiani's rebounding is. If we can't shoot and get the ball in the net, it doesn't matter.
Looking ahead, the one problem I have with them, and I think it's their biggest success right now, but it's also going to be Kentucky's biggest, how they crumble.
Mm-hmm.
It's how, I'm not going to call them one-dimensional, but it's definitely one of the cases where you had that lottery pick that's going to the WNBA draft next year with George A. Moore. And teams have been hounding her on the ball, off the ball. I know Coach Brooks said after the Arkansas game that when they're at A&M, that one of the assistant coaches was getting on to the player guarding Georgia because during a media timeout, Georgia went to talk to Coach Brooks, and he wanted the player to follow her at all times.
Yeah.
It's like, brother, it's a timeout. Chill.
No, yeah, it's definitely the pressure on her. It's getting intense, and it's getting to the point where it's like, she's the best on the team, period. She's gone next year. They're going to need to start looking at who's next up. I do think Clara Strack, over the course of the season, has really proven that she is ready to take over a role as a leader. But, I would like to see Brooks, switch out the lineup a little bit during this game. Throw Cassidy Rowe in there. She can really change the culture.
And she barks off the bench too. She comes in angry.
She's a talker.
Yeah.
She loves that team, and she'll leave her heart out on the court. And I just think we need to start messing with the lineup a little bit, and really, when we have players like Clara Silva on the bench, throw her in there, see what she can do for a couple plays, and if it doesn't work, always swap him back out. But
and she's like a 6'7", 19-year-old.
She's the tallest on the team, and
not?
she has so much experience. She's still adjusting to SEC play, but this team, they start the same starting five, and they stay in majority of the game. That he really needs to start, in my opinion, switching it up, or teams are they're going to be too readable. Yeah. Kentucky's going to be too readable, and they won't be able to.
Opposite of what Mark Pope does, where he throws in 3 freshmen a game or 4 bench players a game. Kenny Brooks doesn't really pull people off the bench.
Because his starting lineup is terrific.
Oh, it's amazing.
And they're perfect.
Can't get
But
better.
at the same time, the deeper we get into the season, the more film there is, and the more they can read exactly what they're doing every single play. Because
Kenny can't keep doing the same thing.
they have the same starting lineup every time, and it stays the same majority of the game.
God forbid Amor gets hurt.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we've talked about
You got
that.
nobody who's been playing realistic minutes
Like-
on the bench.
The main thing is, Jordan Obi and Dominica both getting hurt before the season
Really,
even
really
took
big.
off.
Yeah.
Because
We
Coach
talked
Brooks
about
has
Jordan
said,
Obi a little bit last week.
Coach
There's-
Brooks has even said like Jordan Obi would probably be starting where Deja is right now, and Deja would be the main bench piece, and then
And-
Dominica, and then Silva, Lexi Blue, Cassidy,
Yeah.
Sanaya. They all become so much more valuable because they then have two full lineups that you could throw on the court.
Yeah. And I do remember after, I don't remember which game it was, but there was a coach on the opposing team who said, if you had Obi and Dominica,
scary.
that's an Elite
Yeah.
Eight team right there easily. She said, they got really unlucky losing both of them because that is an Elite Eight team, and that's a pretty unbeatable.
I want to say that was after the Purdue
I
Fort Wayne game.
I think so. That might be right. But yeah.
Just looking a little bit more towards that OU game that they have. That's on paper a relatively close matchup.
Yeah.
Between them, but ESPN gives Oklahoma a 74% chance to win that game.
Really?
Playing at Oklahoma is hard. And once again, they're two teams and programs that are not very familiar with each other. And
sure in the
Oklahoma's known for women's basketball. Like, they have always had a really good program. They did really well in the Big 12. I think they're still adjusting to the SEC, but they're a top dog, and it's kind of similar to the men's where it's like, I'm not sure exactly. Do you know what Oklahoma's ranked right now?
13?
Or I
13.
believe
14? 13?
I know UK was 12 and they
Yeah,
moved back to 13.
I think they were-
so
yeah.
Oklahoma's probably in that
Yeah,
same
but
vein.
that also
13 or
them being 13, but then it's like how many SEC teams are in front of them to where
Exactly.
13 is incredible, and they're
Yeah.
doing really, really well, and that one's going to be very hard, and it's proven that this team struggles on the road at UNC, at A&M, and now they're going to be playing Oklahoma, and Oklahoma, once again, not an easy place to play and a really good program.
Yeah, and they have some ballers.
They have
Reagan
ballers.
Beers. She's
Yeah.
a hooper. Awesome last
Yeah,
name. She's a hooper.
That's going to be a really tough matchup. And once again, I think these next two games are pivotal to their season because after these two games, they're just going to be playing some of the hardest basketball they'll play all season with LSU, Tennessee, Texas, South Carolina. They're going to have to put everything out there. And I think right now is the time for him to start throwing other players in the lineup because there's chances people will get beat down and hurt in these really tough matchups because it's a lot harder competition and there's going to be a lot more, intensity on the game, and they might lose a player, and you can't have a player who's only, been averaging 2-3 minutes a game, throw her in at, South Carolina and be like, you ready to ball? That's just not realistic.
No, it's
so
not.
I'm really hoping to see some changes in the lineup later this week and hopefully against Oklahoma too, so they can start playing with that before they get into that just stretch of madness.
As we close out, I want to make a huge point that we're talking about this Oklahoma game, thinking it's maybe like swaying towards Oklahoma just because it's on the road. They lost at South Carolina 101-60.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll see where Kentucky ends up when they
Yeah.
have to play South Carolina on the road, too. So we can't
We'll be
laugh
there.
I think me and Jenna are
We'll be
planning
there.
on going,
It's gonna be a fun
we'll
one,
see.
but-
That will be a good one to watch for sure.
For sure.
Hope so.
I think it will be. Yeah.
But
It's a special team, and it's really exciting to see how much they've changed their program, in just 1 year, and he built a roster from literally nothing, and now they have this team that's competing like they haven't in a very, very long time.
Thank you for watching and listening to another week of Kernel at the Buzzer. If you made it this far, please comment your favorite Kentucky player. It can be men or women's. We just want to know who your favorite Kentucky player is. Make sure to check us out at KY Kernel Sports on X, and make sure to check us out at kykernel.com as well. I've been Kai McClelland, your host, and we'll see you next week on Kernel at the Buzzer.